The Essene Gospel of the 3rd century stated, "The uncleanness within is greater than the uncleanness without, and he who cleanses himself without, but within remains unclean, is like a tomb that outward is painted fair, but is within full of all manner of horrible uncleanness and abominations." This online feature presentation will answer all the questions you have always wanted to know about colon hydrotherapy, but were afraid to ask. Your colon, also known as the large intestine, is the end portion of the gastrointestinal tract which extends from the mouth to the anus. The digestive process begins in the mouth as soon as you start to chew your food. Along with the chewing action, salivary juices mix with the food to start breaking it down into smaller molecules. After swallowing, the food passes into the esophagus, and using rhythmic wave-like muscular contractions, it forces the food into the stomach. Digestion continues to take place here with the aid of stomach acids. At this point, the food is in a more liquefied state called chyme. The chyme then passes through the duodenum and on into the small intestine. Digestive enzymes continue to break down the chyme, and about 95% of the absorption of your nutrients takes place here. The chyme now passes through the ileocecal valve into the large intestine. As it passes through the colon by a peristaltic action, water is absorbed out and it begins to form into our stool. It travels through the colon to the rectum for evacuation from the body through the anus. The colon is 5 to 6 feet long and makes up the last several feet of the digestive tract. The length of everyone's colon is different, but as a general rule, your colon is as long as you are tall. Up the right side of the abdomen is the ascending colon. Across the top is the transverse. Down your left side is the descending colon, moves into the sigmoid colon, and then the rectum and the anus. By description, it is a hollow tube-like muscular organ which, when in a healthy condition, should be approximately 2 to 2.5 inches in diameter. Every organ and system in the body is connected to the colon. In this picture, you can see the areas of the colon where all the different organs are connected. You can see the mammary glands, the thyroid, the liver, the heart, the stomach, the spleen, the pancreas, the adrenals, and the kidney. I'd like to tell a little story right now which further demonstrates the importance of the colon. One day the body organs got together and decided to have a board meeting, and here's what went on behind closed doors. There was a very intense discussion to determine who was the most important organ of the body. The brain was the first to speak. "Without me, nothing would be accomplished." Then the heart spoke up. "Without me pumping blood to your brain, you could not function." The stomach said, "Without me, your food would not digest." The lungs bellowed back, "Without us, you could not breathe." The kidneys snorted, "Without me, you could not detoxify and eliminate." Then the colon meekly spoke up. "I am the important one. You need me to eliminate all the garbage from your systems." Everybody laughed and made fun of him. "How can you be as important as we are? You're just a smelly old dump." The poor colon, his feelings were hurt. He turned away and thought, "I'll show them." He shut down, sat back, and watched what happened. The brain was stupefied. The heart's beat was regular and weak. The lungs gave in to shallow breathing. The kidneys quit. The colon looked around and decided it was time to call another meeting. It wasn't too lively this time, but everyone was finally in total agreement. The colon was the most important organ of the body. The purpose of your colon is for the removal of waste material from the body by mass muscular contractions called peristalsis. It's for the absorption of water, electrolytes, and minerals. It's for the elimination of toxins from all parts of the body. The colon also contains the largest concentration of beneficial bacteria in the body, which are responsible for the synthesis of important nutrients, including the B vitamins, vitamin K, and folic acid. Functions of the colon. When the colon is functioning properly, it is normal to have a bowel elimination after every meal. The transit time, for an ideal transit time, should be 24 hours. That is taking in the time when you take food into your mouth, it goes through the digestive process, and the waste is eliminated through the anus. So ideally, if your system is working the way that it should be, and you eat 3 meals a day, every time you have a meal, you would be having a bowel movement very shortly afterwards. When the colon is sluggish, mucus and fecal matter begin to accumulate on the walls. Over a long period of time, it can putrefy and become toxic. The body then responds by slowing down other functions, causing constipation and affecting all other systems of the body. This slide shows a healthy colon versus an unhealthy colon. In the healthy colon, you can see the nice uniform size of the muscle, whereas in the unhealthy colon, you can see the damage that's occurred from years of toxic buildup, the irregular shapes that take place. And in the cross section, you can see that the colon is fully encrusted with toxins, fecal waste, and there's only a pencil-sized opening left for the stool to pass through. Symptoms of an unhealthy colon. If you do have a stagnant colon, you may experience any of the following: a coated tongue, skin problems, abnormal body odor, dark circles under the eyes, cold hands and feet, brittle nails and hair, lack of energy, nausea, headaches, depression, asthma, low back pain, and a low sex drive. In summary, the most unhappy people in the world usually have a poor elimination system. Causes of an unhealthy colon. Dehydration. An adult should drink at least 2 liters of water every day. Bad dietary habits. Drinking coffee, tea, alcohol, and colas that contain caffeine will dehydrate the stool. As a general rule, after every cup of coffee or tea, you need to consume an additional 2 cups of water. Eating low fiber, high fat foods, eating too much, and eating too quickly. Emotional stress. The fight or flight syndrome is a reaction to anger, frustration, fear, overwork, and unhappy life circumstances. A stress reaction that involves the release of adrenaline triggers a defensive need, but slows down the non-essential systems like digestion and elimination. Ignoring the call of nature, working in an environment with poor access to washroom facilities, causing system delays. Prolonged bed rest with no exercise and no movements. Certain medications which cause sluggish body functions. Many pain medications such as codeine are known to cause constipation. Physical stress or defects, genetics or accidental impairment of nerve functioning or spinal misalignment. Common names for colon hydrotherapy are colon cleansing, colon irrigations, colonics, colon lavage. In historical times, it was also referred to originally as the enema, also known as the clyster, and also known as playing the bagpipes. Colon hydrotherapy is a cleansing of the last 5 feet of the digestive tract. It's a gentle infusion of filtered, temperature-controlled water into the colon by way of a sterile, disposable rectal tube or speculum. It's clean water in and waste matter flushed out. It removes the accumulated toxic matter from the walls of the colon. The bowel then becomes open to a more efficient means of waste elimination and nutrient absorption, both of which are essential to any lasting healing process. These pictures are examples of actual stool that were eliminated during colon hydrotherapy treatments. Hydrotherapy in history. Colon hydrotherapy is a natural evolution of the enema. The enema procedure has been documented in the medical writings and teachings of many ancient civilizations dating back to 1500 BC. It's been found in the writings of the Sumerians, the Chinese, the Hindu, the Greeks, the Romans, and ancient Egyptians. It's difficult to determine exactly when hydrotherapy emerged, but many historians have traced it back to the time of the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians had been the oldest and first population to document the practice of the enema procedure. In the 5th century, there is actually documentation that the Egyptians purged themselves on 3 consecutive days every month, seeking after health by emetics and enemas, for they believed that all disease came to man from his food. By the 14th century, the popularity of the enema reached the highest levels of royalty. The method was then called playing the bagpipes. King Louis XI became an ardent advocate of the cloisters, which was the new name, and he even had his pet dogs cloisterized when he thought they required it. In the 17th century was known as the Age of the Enema. It was the Parisian fashion at this time to enjoy 3 or 4 enemas a day, believing that internal washing was essential to well-being. By the middle of the 18th century, rubber was developed and the enema apparatus started to evolve. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the enema practice started to dwindle among the medical community as laxatives and drugs became more commercially available and easier to administer. In the early 1900s, Dr. Kellogg popularized colon cleansing and rejuvenated the therapy. He reported in the 1917 Journal of American Medicine that out of 40,000 patients with gastrointestinal disease, diet, exercise, and colon hydrotherapy were an effective treatment. Only 20 of the patients required surgical intervention. In 1932, Dr. Kerr Russell, MD, wrote the book Colonic Irrigation. He was the first to document the use of the term colonic irrigation and colonic lavage. Dr. Russell tracked the evolution of the apparatus for colonic lavage from the earlier syringes, clysters, and enemas to the colonic apparatus of his time. This picture demonstrates how primitive the apparatus for colon hydrotherapy once was. A bag of water is suspended from a pole above the patient's head, flowing freely while the patient was in a supine position with his legs elevated. Fortunately for us, the technology is a little more sophisticated today. The term irrigation describes more accurately than the words clyster or enema, the treatment which is administered with the modern apparatus. These methods lavage and thoroughly cleanse the walls, remove abnormal mucus, and also empty the bowel. The tone of the muscle is improved and the blood supply augmented. In the early 1950s, colonics was flourishing in the U.S. However, as the 60s rolled around, the use of colon irrigations began to dwindle again. In the early 1970s, most colon hydrotherapy equipment was removed from hospitals and nursing homes in favor of colostomies, which is a surgical intervention, fleet enemas, and prescription laxatives. Enemas have been around for thousands of years, although in today's times it is still not a dinner table conversation. If it were, perhaps people wouldn't find the idea of colon hydrotherapy so embarrassing. There are 2 outstanding conclusions. This therapy has never received the recognition it justly deserves, and there is something of value by cleansing the colon. So how does it work? The procedure is performed in a private treatment room with only you and the therapist present. A well-lubricated speculum is then gently inserted into the rectum. The patient lies on their back on the treatment table, comfortably positioned with pillows and fully covered with a sheet. The therapist will perform a series of fills and releases using filtered water that is temperature and pressure controlled. Abdominal massaging helps to stimulate an elimination. This will usually last about 30 to 45 minutes. There may be some discomfort throughout the procedure, but there should not be any pain at any time. After removal of the speculum, the patient uses the washroom to eliminate any remaining water. This is a picture of the Hydrosound Plus equipment that we use at Naturmedic. Across the middle of the machine is a viewing light, which you can see what you've eliminated if you want to. The gauge on your left is a temperature gauge. The gauge in the middle is actually a timer. The gauge on the right is the pressure gauge. Going down to the bottom is a UV light, and under that is a 4-filter system. So, the preparation for colonics, the pre-treatment. No food for 2 hours prior to the treatment. Drink plenty of water or juices. And post-treatment, drink plenty of fluids, water, juice, or herbal teas. Pureed soups are recommended. Avoid eating raw vegetables because they're gas-forming. Boiled or steamed is preferred. Raw fruit is permitted. Reduce your meat consumption for 3 days, especially beef and pork. Replace the intestinal flora. The acidophilus should be taken according to directions on the label. Observe and record your body's reaction to the colonic, the food you eat, and the energy you feel. The conditions for which colon hydrotherapy is beneficial for are abdominal distension, indigestion and flatulence, menstrual problems, allergies and asthma, insomnia, depression and fatigue, anxiety, worry, tension and irritability, loss of memory or concentration, blood pressure and overweight issues, cold hands and feet, unstable, loss of and or poor appetite, hypoglycemia, heavy metal detox, aids in fasting and toxic reactions, helps decrease a healing crisis, also known as a detox reaction. Contraindications for colon hydrotherapy are severe cardiac disease, uncontrolled hypertension, an aneurysm, severe anemias, GI hemorrhage or perforation, severe hemorrhoids, carcinoma of the colon, fissures or fistulas, pregnancy, abdominal hernia, recent colon surgeries, cirrhosis, diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease. Commonly asked questions about colon hydrotherapy. Will one cleansing completely empty the colon? No, almost never. Some of us have 10 to 40 pounds or more of impacted mucus and feces in our colon. Rumor has it that when John Wayne died, he had 90 pounds of stool still in his colon. There is speculation that the buildup toxins in his system could have contributed to his death. How long does each session last? The first session will require an hour for the colonics and about 30 minutes for an intake of your nutrition habits and bowel movement history. Subsequent sessions are 1 hour. Is colon therapy painful? An impacted colon can cause discomfort. Cramping may occur as the colon contracts to expel waste. Once the major impaction is removed, many people find this session pleasant. Is colon therapy embarrassing? The procedure is very private. It's just you and the therapist. There's no fuss, no mess, no odor. It's a great opportunity to relax and release. Will colonics remove parasites? Colon therapy treatments effectively eliminate many species of intestinal parasites. Parasites make their home in packets of the cecum or the mucosa lining of the intestinal tract. With introduction of water into the colon, parasites lose their hold on the intestinal wall. Why can't I use laxatives instead? The chemicals contained in laxatives irritate and stimulate the colon to abnormally contract to expel the irritating substances. An oral route is the least optimal method of evacuation. Most laxatives and purgatives precipitate dehydration in the individual. Standard enemas only cleanse the rectum and the last portion of the colon, missing most of the large intestine. If you are considering having a colon hydrotherapy session, be sure to research more than one facility. This is a list of questions that you should ask. Do you use triple filtered water? Do you use all disposable equipment? Do you use UV light treated water? Do you use an up-to-date closed system? Do you have precise temperature and pressure control on your machine? Do you have optional ozone administration? At naturmedic.com, the answer to all of these questions is yes. I hope I have answered all your questions about colon hydrotherapy. Thank you for watching this feature presentation.